Hello and welcome to another edition of Business Track, a program that takes you through financial happenings within the country and around the world. My name is Chinemerem Joseph. On our discussion on the program today, we'll focus on the ease of doing business in the country amidst economic recession. Last year, the World Bank in its Ease of Doing Business Index for 2017 ranked Nigeria 169th position out of 190 countries. Of course, as a student, if out of 190 students in your class, your position is 169, it is a poor performance coupled with the economic recession today. The Ease of Doing Business Index ranks countries against each other based on how the regulatory environment is conducive to business operations, market-friendly policies, and regulatory interference. I'll hold it here as my guest, KUDLA SATUMARI, the President and CEO of Aviara Global Concept Limited and an aviation consultant, just call him a business expert, will be discussing issues relating to the ease of doing business in the country on the program today. But before then, let's visit the newsroom. The Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, has called on the federal government to ensure speedy implementation of the economic recovery plan to spur growth this year. The Governor of the Apex Bank, who listed these as one of the economic growth parameters at the Monetary Policy Committee meeting in Abuja, also said that the committee retained all policy parameters. Our correspondent was at the MPC meeting and filed in this report.
Available data and forecasts of key economic variables, as well as the newly released federal government's Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, indicate prospects of output recovery in 2017.
This is the second Monetary Policy Committee meeting in 2017 and the fifth time the policy parameters has been retained since July 2016. The governor explains why the policy parameters were retained.
The counterfactual arguments against loosening was anchored on the upward trending month-on-month inflation and its impact on the exchange rate.
Amidst the current recession, the National Bureau of Statistics announced a drop in inflation rate, which the governor noted was inspiring and encouraging enough.
Headline inflation year-on-year, however, declined for the first time in 15 months, dropping by 0.94 percentage points to 17.78% in February.
The recent intervention by the Apex Bank in the foreign exchange market also appears to have addressed some challenges in the market. But how sustainable is the Apex Bank's intervention in the forex market?
Reserves at this time still trending upwards to almost close to $31 billion as I speak with you. And the fact that we have done this consistently for 4 to 5 weeks should tell everybody or those who doubt the strength of central bank to sustain this policy, for me to say that they are taking a risk.
The governor, who announced the parameters retained as interest rate 14%, cash reserve ratio at 22.5% and liquidity ratio at 30%, again called for the diversification of the nation's economy from oil, as this remains a key panacea for economic growth. A total of 429.1 billion naira has been distributed as federal allocation for the month of February 2017 to the federal, state and local governments. The amount shared has a shortfall of 36 billion naira from the 465.1 billion naira shared in January this year. Announcing the breakdown at the end of the Federation Account Allocation Committee meeting in Abuja, the Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, said there was a decrease in the average price of crude oil from $49.5 to $44.7 per barrel during the period under review due to leakages in the pipelines arising from sabotage.
Statutory 258.692, VAT 69.207, total distributable 327,899 million, to which we added an exchange gain of 40.329 and PPT distribution of 60.899. So the grand total being distributed today is 429,127 million naira. The excess balance on the excess crude account, 2,4 $460 million. And the NMPC refund to the federal government is $6.33 billion.
Meanwhile, the Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, says capital releases to federal ministries, departments and agencies for the 2016 budget have reached a record 1 trillion naira, the highest ever budgetary releases in Nigeria's annual funding for capital projects. The finance minister attributed this to the current stability in oil price and the return of normalcy in the Niger Delta. She disclosed the figure in an interactive exchange with members of the House of Representatives Tactical Committee on Recession in Abuja. The amount was released for various projects, including the commencement of the construction of a dual standard railway line that would link Lagos and Kano, rehabilitation of roads, expanding irrigation facilities to boost agriculture, and the upgrading of aviation infrastructure throughout the country. The minister pointed out that contractors returning to project sites around the country have employed workers, contributed to economic growth and improved the well-being of Nigerians in line with the strategic objective of the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. It will be recalled that in the federal government's drive to devote more resources to capital projects, especially the upgrading of the country's infrastructure, the Federal Executive Council, at its meeting on March 22nd this year, approved the reconstruction of 12 more major highways across the country at the contract sum of 80 billion naira. We'll take a break here, and when we come back, go straight to our discussion for today.
Television.
The point is this: is the executive branch. The president has
me, Shegun Ojomo. On this program, we'll be bringing you news, views, and exclusive interviews.
Not political will to to bring back people, our medical experts that are on that.
Praise the efforts so far.
The synergy that has been developed.
Arrived Abuja from Washington, D.C., where he joined President Barack Obama.
The cause of the economic recession was over. Now, Senator Saki in an interactive
to capture the moment for in-house in session.
With the powers that be.
Thank you for staying tuned. Sometime in January this year, we had KUDLA SATUMARI, a business expert, to discuss the ease of doing business in Nigeria. We'll be sharing his thoughts on the issue once again on the program today. Okay, thank you for staying with us. Let's get down to our discussion for today. And I have my guest here, Mr. KUDLA SATUMARI, the President and CEO of VR Global Concept Limited, and an aviation consultant. He joins me in discussing the ease of doing business in the country amidst economic recession. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, viewers.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Let's start from Nigeria's position on the ease of doing business index by the World Bank. How did we get there?
Well, like you said, we have even appreciated. It was actually 170th position.
That was in 2015.
So we have appreciated 1 point. And for the benefits of those who are not following, some of the things they consider are things like ease of getting, for example, permits for construction, facility, loans, power, and all those things. So you would see that every Nigerian, whether you're in business or not, you will know that doing things in Nigeria is not easy. And even by ranking, comparing other countries against us, countries like Zimbabwe is ahead of us. Countries like Sudan are ahead of us on the index of ease of doing business. So we need to look at some of the issues critically.
Well, let's start from, you talked about the permit and of course some other policies that are, if you like, call them unfriendly policies that government have put in place. Sometimes we hear them say, people say it's a policy somersault. You know, they want to put it out there, it doesn't work, they go back and try to. Do you think government is doing the right thing, or probably they are not sitting down, you know, trying to draw the map well, dot their T's, their I's, and cross their T's before coming out with some of these policies that are not working out for us?
You would expect that a government that has itemized 3 major areas should have some plans to work with. Like my friend and I were talking about this thing in Jos yesterday, and he said, look, the problem of Nigeria is not actually corruption. It's a lack of purposeful leadership. And where you've had some leaders project image of courage and focus, there are certain aspects that is not looked into. We are treating the symptoms of the problems that we have. Yes, look at the policy issue that came up. Every Nigerian, whether you are in business or not, is beginning to see the impact of the reversal on some of the policies regarding foreign exchange. And it has impacted majorly on investment in Nigeria. Take, for instance, the other day I was talking with an investor. We're thinking about having property development contract. And he asked me, what is the duration of lease in your country? I said 99 years. And he said, wow, what are you going to do in 99 years in the kind of project we're looking at? In UK here is 999 years. Now, these are some of the things that we need to look at. I'm grateful that, I'm happy rather, that in the ease of doing business index when it comes to foreign ownership of business, ease of having this thing, we are ranking about 32, which is very commendable. But there are certain elements, certain infrastructures that need to be put in place before we move ahead. And purposeful leadership, we are looking at leaders who are courageous and are not fearful. We're not talking about leaders who are afraid. We want leaders who fear God. By having that fear, you are able to look at certain aspects of our polity objectively, without fear, with compassion and with integrity. If you drive the process and show integrity in the things you are doing, other people will follow.
Okay, let's take it back to this point. You're a business expert in the country. And how easy or how difficult, you talked about infrastructures. I want you to let's outline these infrastructures and let's know what they are. Because you're sounding like it's very difficult to do business here. Now, you're a businessman. How difficult is it? What are these infrastructures you want the government to put in place so that you can thrive and then other business operators in the country can also thrive?
One of the major infrastructure that we need to be in place are the roads and power. Almost every business, small, medium, and large-scale industry depend on power. And if you have access to power, it cuts down the cost of production. Now, access to good roads so that you can move goods from one point to the other. You will find out that the cost of transportation and power put together takes a large chunk of cost of production because our roads are not in very good condition. Just this afternoon, my workers called me on site and said, well, the cost of sharp sand that we require for the work has gone up by 25% between Friday and today. And the question was, what is the problem? They said, the cost of diesel has gone up. Why do we need diesel in the first place? Because no power. And these are some of the common things that you can look at. And you want to start business, you need money to start business. And you go to the banks, the interest rates are prohibitive. Some businesses may not give you a profit of 20%, while the banks, by the time the whole package is put together, the interest rate would be about 21 to 22%.
You know, I was about going there. When you have probably some businesses that are a little bit big and they can manage, they can try to survive. You have this micro, small and medium enterprises who are struggling and they get to the banks and the interest rates, this double-digit thing that, you know, scares them from even trying to grow their business. What do you think the managers, those in the regulators, talking from the central bank down to other, some of these managers we have at the helm of this, the banking industry, what do you think they should do to make this businesses grow?
Funny enough, they have done a lot of things. You go to Bank of Industry, you go to banks, there are dedicated funds for medium and small-scale industries to support their businesses. They have driven down the interest rates so that they can benefit from it. But if you go and you want to access these funds, that is when you begin to see challenges in meeting some of the requirements. Some of these challenges are also put in there by those who are supposed to facilitate ease of accessing these funds. There are some unconfirmed confirmed reports that some people that have gone to access these funds meet a situation where a demand is placed on them, which is outside the requirement that the government has put in place. So we are not blaming government wholesale, because Nigeria and Nigerians have come up with ideas. They have come up with policies, but the process of implementation is where we've been having problems. And that is why we need integrity and moral values to be inculcated in those who help us in making sure that these policies are carried out.
Okay, so maybe once again, before we close, maybe we need to buttress what we need to do. I'm sure the onus doesn't just lie on the government. So probably, of course, the private sector, they are also part of it. What can be done to probably move us up from this position that has kept us so backward? And how do we do things better?
We need to review how we do things. And by that, I mean that our leaders should have the moral courage to do the right things by getting the right people into the right place. There is so much nepotism, so much patronage. We need to get competent people to occupy positions that will have impact on the life of people. And if they are able to project the idea behind some of the policies that we bring on board and is able to be implemented well, we will begin to see fruits of those things bearing.
Yeah, so maybe before we let you go, I would want to take you, you're an aviation consultant, and then the news has been all over that 6 weeks, the Abuja airport will be closed and then activities will be moved to Kaduna State. Is it good for business? How do you see it?
Well, we've made our case in different fora regarding the movement of the airport, with some decisions that have to be taken sometimes have to make economic sense and to a certain extent political sense. And we have, to answer that question, whether it is going to make an economic this thing, definitely is going to affect the economic activity in the country, because Abuja is one of the major hubs. Businesses, governance, and all those elements are going to be affected. The cost of moving to Kaduna is also huge. For instance, I do not think that movement was envisaged in good time for the cost of movement to be in the budget, and that cost have to be appropriated. That brings me back to leadership that we're talking about, because if we had good leadership, plans would have been in place such that it will not deteriorate to the point that we have to take this drastic decision.
What can be done now? What can we do?
What can be done now regarding the movement of Kaduna, you mean?
Yes. What do we do? The airport has to be closed for repairs. What else can we do rather than go into Kaduna, which is just by the corner?
Well, the other thing we can do is not being considered by the authorities, and they have their own reasons. Because sometimes when you talk from outside without knowing the details of why certain decisions are taken, and some of them cannot be made known to the public, what can be done now is all the stakeholders should put their heads together and see what needs to be done. I heard the other time that the management of the construction company were saying that actually the work can be done while limited flights can be allowed in, but it will take longer time to complete. But these were some of the suggestions that were being put forward.
Okay, thank you so much for coming on the program. My guest has been KUDLA SATUMARI, the President and CEO of Viara Global Concept Limited and an aviation consultant. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that's the size of our package for today. We'll now leave you with graphic details of business transactions within the country. Thank you for being a part of the program. And don't forget to join us again, same time next week. I am Chinemerem Joseph.